What's going on, everybody? What's going on? Good evening, good evening. Hope everyone's had themselves a fine day today. I know I have. As Steve says, it's always a good day to be a man. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about submissives. You know, this is always a wonderful topic that just keeps coming up because I hear a lot of guys talking about submissive this, submissive that, and so I wanted to bring some clarity to the whole submissive thing. So that's what we're going to get into a little bit, because I think what a lot of guys have in their head is really just cooperation. I think what they're really after is just a bit of cooperation, and they're not really talking about someone who is a submissive. And there's a lot of variations in submissives. So we're gonna kind of get into that a little bit because there's 24/7 submissives where they want to live it and breathe it every single day, and that's just what they're all about. And then there is submissives who only feel like they get into that mindset when they're in certain situations, and sometimes that's just play in the bedroom. It could be only at home, or it could be completely everywhere. So there's a lot of variability, but there are some characteristics that are I'd say fairly common amongst subs, and or just women who are submissive in nature, or they kind of just like to roll that way naturally. So guys, today they think that women aren't this way, and they absolutely are. They absolutely can be. So we're going to get into that a little bit, and then I wanted to get into just a little bit of details around punishments and rewards, and because this is part of a lot of dynamics, a lot of management of your systems, a lot of management of your program, and how you go about strengthening certain boundaries. And that's really what's important in these fields. So we're going to go into that as well. All right. So let's look at this list here. I've got a list of I think about 30 characteristics of an ideal sub. And so the first one is to be polite and courteous. It grinds my gears when I hear women with trucker mouth, like women who are using swear words, curse words, and they never say please and thank you. They don't speak softly. I think being polite and courteous just in general is always a good trait to have, but when it's with a woman, it's even more invigorating to see. It's more inspiring when I see a woman who has good manners and they're polite and courteous, and they speak softly, and hopefully they're not ones to carry a big stick. What's up, Solar Power? Good to see you, man. So yeah, that's a big one. Polite and courteous. The next one is to be humble. So humility is a fantastic trait. Nobody likes someone who's too proud, because when you're not humble, that prevents someone from learning. Their pride is blocking. So the opposite of humility is pride. And so when someone has too much pride, they end up blocking their ability to learn. And this is ineffective in a dynamic, because if someone has too much pride, then when you bring something up to them that needs correction or improvement, then it's going to get in the way of that actually happening. So being humble is the mindset of, I have my pride under control, my ego is under control. It's not going to try and protect me at every single step of the way when daddy or sir tells me to do something, or he wants me to learn something or correct something. I'm going to be humble and listen to what he has to say. And hopefully when you're doing this, you're giving clear instruction, you're giving clear explanation, because it's really important for people to, when they're being corrected, it's important for them to not just do what you say, but to have an understanding as to why they're doing it. And this often requires a bit of an explanation. All right, the third one is the next one here is to be respectful to me and to the self. So just an overall respect. So that's like, not getting into any sort of disagreements in public, right? Keep that shit from when you're at home. And, don't be an embarrassment to me. Don't be an embarrassment to yourself, because if I'm out with you, or if you're out alone, I'd like for you to conduct yourself in such a way that if I ever hear about it or I saw it somewhere like on video or whatever, I'm not going to be embarrassed. So it's the idea that we're going to respect how we present, and we're not going to do anything that is embarrassing, and that's aggressive embarrassing or foolish embarrassing, anything like that. And again, that's kind of keeping in mind like the whole idea that the dynamic is like the most important thing in mind. So the next one is being attentive and mindful. So what this is it's linked to that same sort of thing. And when one is attentive and mindful, they're looking at things beyond just what they want. And they're looking at the structures and the dynamic and the situation that they're in, and they're looking to see how can I improve, where are things falling to the wayside, because things do, right? There's a lot of things to deal with in a relationship, and both like on your own personal side as well as the other person and the dynamic in between the two of you. So occasionally things will slide off while you're paying attention to one thing, and that's just life. But if you're attentive and mindful, you can kind of catch these things before they fall off too far. And it's just what allows one to be proactive and being an active participant in the situation. All right, the next ideal characteristic of a sub is to be, I mentioned before, is to be proactive, which is doing what needs to be done without being asked. All right, so we'll just put that in with being attentive and mindful. The next one is enthusiasm. Okay, there's nothing better than seeing someone who's enthusiastic about doing something. It's wonderful to see. Like if you ever had the experience of teaching anything, or being like a sports coach or anything along those lines, and you see someone that you're working with and they're really into it, like they really want to put in good effort, and they're there to impress, but also because they themselves want a solid sense of satisfaction. Boy, say that 10 times fast. Solid sense of satisfaction. So that's what they're after. That's being enthusiastic. All right, the next one here is to give space to me and for my autonomy. So with many subs, and even just like, ladies in general, they will want to be by you all the time. They're sometimes clingy. They sometimes want to just be close to you because they feel better. They feel safer. They feel more comfortable when they're next to you. And, when you're not there, there's like this gap. And, that's just something natural that happens a lot. So when it's like that, it's important to establish that you take time and space for yourself and you maintain some of your autonomy. That's like really powerful. I mean, that's just good relationship stuff in general, because you're going to want to maintain your own individual life, your own individual creativity, because you percolate that energy outside of the dynamic or the relationship, and you can bring that back in. So it's like having hobbies, hanging out with your friends, visiting your family just on your own. and not always having her in tow with whatever it is you're doing. You feel like going camping by yourself, go camping by yourself. Okay? You want to go to the gym by yourself, go to the gym by yourself. Take the time to foster your own energy to bring back in, and the sub is to respect that and understand, like, again, through explanation, how that actually strengthens things. So the next one is to be able to regulate their emotions. What's going on, King Ken? Instant Classic, I see you too, man. So the next one here is to regulate emotions. So a lot of subs will want, and women in general too, they will want you to be the regulatory device for their emotions. And while this may be the case in general for a lot of situations that happen within the relationship, it's important for you to teach them how to have emotional regulation on their own, because you're not always going to be there. Why? Because you have your autonomy. Maybe you have to go take a work trip for a week. Maybe you need to go visit your mother in another state and she's sick and you have to be there for a few days. For whatever reason, you might not always be there. And it's important that you teach them how to have that emotional regulation. Much in the same way as when you're teaching emotional regulation to a child, when you're transitioning them like out of the parent's bed into their own bedroom or something along those lines. And they have to kind of deal with what's there and then adapt and learn how to self-soothe. It's along the same lines. All right, so the next one that's an ideal trait for subs is to be humorous and lighthearted. Nobody likes a Debbie Downer. Nobody likes heavy hearts and heavy minds. And I think us men, we become more invigorated and inspired by women who have a light heart, who they're just not this like heavy object. And I think that's kind of where that old phrase, like the old ball and chain, right? Like, I don't want my woman to feel like an iron ball and chain that's tied to my ankle that I'm dragging around because she's such a stick in the mud, right? Or she's so filled with worry or anxiety or anger or fear. Like, these things can really, really weigh down an individual, and then that transfers into the dynamic of the relationship. And it's just like, you're going to be stuck constantly having to lift that up. Okay, so again, with the emotional regulation teaching, it's, if they're not already lighthearted, it's going to be teaching them ways in which to be lighter hearted. And there's a number of techniques and mindsets that go into that, in teaching mindsets, teaching how to alleviate one's mind and to be a bit lighter and a little less worrisome. And I think it's also closely tied with trust, right? So putting trust in me, putting trust in our dynamic, that's what allows for some of that relaxation and to become lighter. That's what, one of the major factors. All right, so the next one here is have a willingness to be vulnerable and open. And again, it's like you can't be closed off. So just I was mentioning trust. The trust is that, when she starts opening up, the trust starts, coming into play, and then things kind of blossom and open up more. And the more open she is, the more vulnerable she will be, and the more submissive she will be. So it's like all these things kind of work in tandem with each other, because the more closed off you are, the more masculine energy you've got, the tougher you are. You kind of firm up, and it allows you to take on stimuli that's psychological, take it on emotionally, take it on physically, like you're bracing yourself. Okay, and us men, we have to brace ourselves for a ton of stuff all the time, and we don't want that for our women. We want our women to be soft, light, easygoing, humorous, right? Just playful and like a little bouncing cloud, right? We don't need like this, again, like this iron ball, okay? But that is closely tied, like that lightness is closely tied with their vulnerability and their ability to open up to you. So in order to, a lot of these things here, it's not just them bringing it to you. It's also you being in such a way and have your program in such a way that fosters this behavior. It supports it. So if it's there, say 30%, you can bring it up to 70%. If it's at 70%, you can bring it up to 100. And with all of these characteristics, okay? So be trustworthy and trusting, okay? I already mentioned that. The next one is to have a natural desire to serve. And, this is a tough one because especially if, you're dealing with a woman who has been serving themselves and taking care of themselves for a long period of time, it's a lesson that they get pleasure, they get joy from serving. And there are some people who are just naturally like that. They're just natural givers, okay? If they're not natural givers and they've been outside fending for themselves, again, like bracing themselves against the world, they're going to have some difficulty serving. And this is something that you're going to have to teach. You're going to have to teach them. And I suggest you by using positive reinforcement models, instead of negative reinforcement. So like, don't chastise them for not serving. Give them the positive reinforcement that when it does show up, it starts that triggering in the mind of like, oh, my man is happy. My man does something in return, be it like a verbal recognition, a little trinket, some sort of action to say, I like what you're doing. Do this more. It's really sexy. It makes me happy. And there's a number of ways that you can do this to kind of start those triggers in the mind so that they are more apt to continue doing that sort of thing. All right, so the next one here for ideal submissive traits is expressing gratitude and appreciation. This is a huge one on my list, huge one. I think that this goes with the first one, being polite and courteous. Not enough people in general have a sense of appreciation. They don't have appreciation for their lives. They don't have appreciation for the things that are going on, like with their family, their friends, their job, their home, the opportunities that they have, the fact that they're alive. And then just the little things that go on all throughout life. It's just like you kind of shrug it off. And when you have an appreciation for things, an appreciation for people, what that does is it draws your attention to the details of life around you. And if this is with a person that's involved in your life, like intimately, you then start looking at them in a more detailed fashion, because you'll then be looking for ways to express gratitude and appreciation. Carmen here says, what's up? Good to see you again. The fact that you can just turn on the faucet. Yeah, I don't really know what you mean by that, but I appreciate the comment and thank you for stopping through. You'll have to explain that a little bit more. But so yeah, it's really important to have a sense of gratitude. And this, I think, is important going both ways. So on the Dom side, it's important to have gratitude and appreciation when mixed with positive reinforcement. So let's say you has done something and it's something you approve of and you really enjoy it. Express that gratitude. Express appreciation for what she's doing, especially if it's something that she's learning that's new, and because that will give her more inspiration to want to continue doing that good thing. Okay. And of course, I like being appreciated and I like being recognized for the things that I do and the things that I am. And so when a woman says thank you for this, that, and the other, I don't care what it is, from just like simple things, hugs, kisses, like going somewhere, holding hands, helping them study for something, orgasms, helping them pick out outfits or clothing or whatever it is. The being able to say thank you for anything that's done just shows that they're paying attention. This shows that they're watching you. Okay. And they're watching with detail. So that's a really important thing in my book. Yes, Carmen, yes. Okay. And water comes out for whatever you need, as much as you need. Yeah. Okay, the next one that's on here is having strong communication skills. So this is something that many subs have problems with, because they're such internal beings. They kind of keep a lot of things to themselves, and possibly like insecure about expressing their feelings, maybe feeling that doing so might be too aggressive or too assertive to say like, this is how I'm feeling, and they feel like that might be a burden. So it's really important to teach them that it's important for the dynamic that they have good open communication skills. And this isn't just dumping, it's learning the skill of communicating properly. And this comes into like structural things, such as like having good grammar, all right, having good manners in speech, just not saying dumb shit, but also being able to convey their thoughts and emotions in a way that is easily heard, because that's something that a lot of people want. And I know this is common with a lot of women. They want to be heard in a certain way. They want to at least give the listener some semblance of what it is they're going through, what it is they're experiencing, what they're feeling. And it's good to be on the listener's side, to be a skillful listener, but it's also incumbent on the person who is speaking to have good communication skills. So when, say, you're upset, it's really important to not speak through those emotions, but to be able to calm down and then shift to the side and talk of your feelings over here instead of in them. And that's a skill that has to be learned, I think, especially for people who are very emotionally charged, which a lot of women can be. And so it's a skill that needs to be learned, and it takes a little bit of time to be able to communicate one's emotions without communicating from the emotions. Okay, so the next one here is accepting responsibility. I think we all know what that is. And this, in turn, how it relates to your program is, when you give tasks or you have certain things going on in the relationship or in the dynamic that requires them to remember certain things that are important, it's of grave importance that they accept the responsibility of the tasks they've been given, and including a sense of pride, because responsibility works really well if there's pride mixed in with it, because it brings about this sense of like, I really enjoy doing the things that I'm responsible for. I think when we hear responsibilities, there's like a negative tinge to it, right? Like it's like responsibilities can't be enjoyable, and they absolutely can be enjoyable. They just have to be learned to be enjoyable, right? But we have this idea that if we're responsible for something, it's got to be this crazy burden, and it doesn't have to be. All right. Okay, next one is place the dom's needs above their own. And this kind of goes back and in line with what I was talking about before, about for someone who has been on their own, say, for a while, and this woman, she's been fending for herself. She's her mind is strong, her body, her actions, and her emotions are able to deal with the world in an assertive manner. It's going to be difficult for this person to learn to put someone else's needs above their own, because they've been living off of their own needs for quite some time. So this goes hand in hand with serving. And so if this is the case for you, that you're with someone like this, take it easy. Like don't get so frustrated, because if they're showing willingness to learn, then don't push too hard. I mean, of course, you have to push into their or push them out of their comfort zones a little bit, but just a little bit. And if they're just inching out of it and not going as fast as you would like it to be, because you really want them to be this serving person who puts your needs above theirs, it's not going to happen overnight. It's something that's going to have to be developed. And this is also closely tied in with their sense of trust, vulnerability, being able to be open, and all that good stuff. What's up, 100% me? Thank you for coming through. All right, next one here is to be willing to adopt to the Dom's will. And this, again, is really closely tied with trust, right? If they can't trust you, then they're not going to be so willing to give over their decision-making abilities. They're going to, because they've trusted their own decision-making abilities for so long. So again, this is a slow, gradual process. It's rarely you're going to see overnight that the person is just like, yep, sure. Like, I completely trust you. We've only known each other for 2 months, and my will is yours. You can have it. Like, that is not going to happen. That's that's never going to happen. It's a slow process because trust is extremely deep. There's a lot of layers and levels to it. So take your time. Again, by using positive reinforcement that allows them to open up, and your consistency is key here, because that is something that allows them to see something and hear something and feel something that is regular. And when it's regular and it feels good, then they're more apt to open up, become more vulnerable, become more trusting, and then be more or less reluctant to hold on to their will and slowly give their will over to you. All right. Now, the flip side of this is that, like, none of this stuff is actually something you actually can want, because when you want something, you start pulling and clutching and worrying that it's not there, and hoping to change it, and you try to do things to make it happen. Then that's going to put pressure on the situation. And when she's opening up, the sensory organs, if you want to call it that surround things like trust and vulnerability, they're extremely sensitive. Kind of like what came to mind was like the eyes on a snail or a slug, and they come out. The slightest touch, they go and they pull in, right? I don't think those are their eyes, but they're like their antennae. Okay. It's like that. Like, the slightest little touch that's disturbing can cause it to draw back and recede and pull back in. So it's important that you don't put pressure on these situations. You can make it clear of what it is that you want in a general scope, so that when they're first getting involved with you, they kind of have a good idea of what it is you're trying to foster here and what your vision is, so that they have a choice of oh, okay, I like that general vision, let's go. But the process of getting there is something that takes time. So if this doesn't happen overnight, don't beat yourself up over it. It's a slow process. And the truth is that these things don't just, when they happen, they click into place and it's automatic 100%. It keeps going. These things are continually evolving and getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So trust, I don't think, has a limit. I think it just has continuous depths into infinity. And I think that sounds a little poetic, but I don't think there's really a limit where you're yep, I'm 100% in trust. I think it just goes beyond 100%. I think it's just endless. And there's a lot of these things are, okay? Especially things like openness and vulnerability, and say one's will or one's desire to serve. Desire doesn't have a limit either. So, these things can grow indefinitely. Okay, the next one here is having self-awareness. So this is attached to being attentive and mindful, and also being humble. A lot of these things, it's bringing the attention back to the self, and being able to have an awareness of one's own pride and one's own ego, so that you can understand that they're at play. When they're working their bullshit magic on the situation, you're able to recognize it and then go a different way. And you can see oh shit, I was just acting out of pride. I wasn't being humble. I wasn't being soft. I wasn't being that light cloud. I was being defensive. I was being aggressive. I was being too assertive. I was trying to assert my will into the situation. And then, is that really what I want? What is the thing that I actually want? Oh, I want freedom. Well, if I want freedom and relaxation, I'm gonna have to learn to let go. So knowing all those processes requires a high level of self-awareness, including with a desire to go in that direction, whatever direction that the Dom is taking you, and then having trust in them, having trust in that process. So a lot of this has to kind of coexist at the same exact time. Okay, next one here is a mindset of acceptance. So things are not always going to go your way. They're not always going to go my way. There's things in life that are completely out of my control. And there's things that you want that you're not going to get. You might not get it now, and you might get it later, or you might not get it ever. And that's just part of the deal. It's like my kid wants whatever this thing is, and it's like, it's never going to happen. So they have to accept the fact that it's never going to come into their lives. And there's a lot of things that are that way. And so having an acceptance sort of mindset that, things may not go the way you want, or having an acceptance of that self, like accepting who you are, accepting your role, accepting the plan, accepting, letting go, accepting surrender. So there's a lot of things that come with accepting, and that's, again, deeply tied with trust and vulnerability and openness. All right, next one here, ideal characteristics of submissive is to be dedicated towards achieving excellence as a submissive. So this is tied in with the self-awareness and all of these traits here. So it's being aware of what is it that I want for myself as a sub? What is it that my Dom wants for me? What does he want to see as part of this vision that I willfully want to be part of? And I'm going to be dedicated towards achieving that vision. I want to be that person. And when you have that and you combine it with enthusiasm and a desire to learn and lightness, it becomes incredibly powerful. Talk about self-empowerment. That's self-empowerment, is having that vision for yourself as a sub and then working towards that. Okay. The next one here is to be honest and sincere. I don't think that needs any kind of explanation, except on the Dom side. I think that I think that guys regularly just aren't used to hearing the truth. I mean, they're okay in truth in their world, but they're not used to hearing truths coming from women. And, regular guys, because they're conditioned in a certain way, and they also, through their reactions, condition women to not tell them things because of adverse reactions. And, I think girls find this out at some point earlier in life, and they're like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't talk about that, because every guy that I said this to, or in this topic, they all had terrible reactions, and I don't want to deal with that. So I'm just gonna kind of keep it under wraps. And so they're not able to actually show their honesty when it comes to their experience or a thought or an idea, or a desire or something like that. And like sexual partners, that's a big one. It keeps being talked about over and over. Like, she's learned somewhere along the line that if she tells someone too much, like a guy that she's with, she talks too much about her sexual past, it's going to make him really uncomfortable. And it might be so much that he, kicks her to the curb, or he becomes really insecure or defensive or whatever. And so she's learned, this is not a topic to bring up with most guys. Okay. So on the side of the Dom, it's being accepting of her honesty, because what you want, the ideal thing, is a completely opened up woman. Completely opened up. Now, is that actually going to happen? I don't think you're ever going to see 100% of a person. There's always going to be things that you will never see. There's things that I see that her friends will never see, that her mother never sees. There's things that her mother sees that her friends see, friends won't see, that I won't ever see. So, and same with the friends. So there's all sorts of things that are going on that it's like there's never you never get a full 100% view of a person, but we can aspire towards that. We can aspire towards helping the woman, helping the sub open up to this deeper level of themselves, a deeper experience of who they are and their being. And if they can't be honest with you, you're never going to see that. You're never going to experience it because you're afraid of what she might reveal. And if she gets a sense that you're afraid of what she might reveal, then she's gonna hold off. Okay? Those little antennae are gonna they'll come right back in. Okay? All right, so the next one here is having confidence in yourself and your abilities. Self-confidence is something that's a problem amongst a lot of women. And even in their proposed sort of like, I'm a 10, I'm a boss bitch, I'm this, I'm that, to me, it always comes off as a cope. It comes off as a cope, as a trying to fight something that they know to be true. And are they all insecure? No, probably not. But I think more of them aren't as confident as they say they are. I think it's a big front. And a lot of guys too. I think just humans in general, they want to pump up their self-image, but behind it is just someone who's actually really scared. Right? The most confident people are just really calm. They don't have to come out and tell people that they're super confident, that they're a boss, that they're a G, that they're a boss bitch, or that they are this or that. Like, they don't have to say a word. Okay? They're not boastful, because what's the point? It serves no purpose. You don't have to tell anybody. So when people say these sort of things, it's like, well, who are you trying to convince? You or me? What are you trying to do here? Because I don't really care about you telling me that you're super ultra confident. So are you just trying to hear it so you can hear yourself say it so eventually you'll believe it more? No. These skills that I'm talking about, these traits, these characteristics, they all tie in together into creating a more wholesome, well-rounded, open, and strong human being. Because in order to have that confidence in oneself, it has to deal with learning about your shadow, learning about the dark sides of yourself, learning about the sides of yourself that you're ashamed of, learning about the sides that you criticize yourself on that may or may not warrant criticism. And all these things are tied in with self-image. And once these things are dealt with, and again, you're not going to hear about them if she's not honest, and she can't be honest if she doesn't trust you. So again, all these things are tied together. But if that honesty is there, if that trust is there, then these things can be exposed. The stuff that's inside, that internal dialogue that she has about herself, that is full of self-bashing, that she works really hard not to do, which actually in turn strengthens those things, because the more you push, the more it pushes back. You just have to let it go. Okay? And it's a lot easier to let it go if it's within a container that feels safe to do so. And that container is the man. So the next trait here is to be emotionally warm. Okay? That goes in with being enthusiastic, humorous, and lighthearted. Nobody likes a fucking stick in the mud. Okay? Being emotionally warm. When I see you, smile. Like, I'm your man. Smile. Come jump into my arms. Give me a hug. Give me a kiss. This is like, just let it flow. Let this, because once you're open and vulnerable, then all the like the happy feels and shit like that can come in, because now your stresses are being unburdened from you. The stresses of self. I mean, not the stresses of the world. I mean, we're all going to have to deal with that, but it's the stresses of self, of the many minds that women have going on in their heads constantly, all these different voices. Okay. Once those sort of kind of drift away, I mean, I don't think they're ever going to go away completely, but well, in certain situations they can, but that's a whole other topic. But having them kind of drift further away from the conscious mind, this is what allows that warmth to come through, that emotional warmth. And, you know, guys, we deal with the cold world all the time, constantly, in so many different spheres. And it's like the world does not give a shit. It doesn't give a shit about any of us. And that's okay. Like, we learn to accept it, but like, cold is cold, right? Like, I don't care if you're Russian and you grew up in extremely cold climates. You know what is cold. You're just like all right with dealing with it, and you know, and that's fine. But the thing is that when you come to your woman, it's like, I want that to be my little fireplace where I can take off my shoes, kick my feet up, and let that part of me just kind of relax and settle into that. So it's really important to have that emotional warmth as, like, you know, for your man when you're a woman, when you're a submissive. Okay, next one here is to be supportive, but not blindly so. Okay. Of course, have your own head about your shoulders, but it's really important to be supportive. Okay, this goes in with being mindful. It goes in with having a vision of who you want to be as a sub, why you're doing these sort of things, having an understanding of what the overarching goal is for yourself, for the dynamic, for your dom, and for your man, and knowing how you can be supportive in that, so that you're not just this barnacle that's along for the ride. You're actually an active participant in giving your support, in giving of yourself. It's a wonderful thing when you get a message saying, how can I serve you today? How can I help you out today? Give me something to do. What's something that I can do to make things better? And then as she learns more and more and more about your life and the things you're doing and the things you need going on, she can then kind of look a few corners ahead and go, you know what? I think it would be really helpful if I did this before he even got to it. And then that happens and he's like, oh shit, recognizes, gives that verbal recognition and the validation, gives some sort of positive reinforcement, and then boom, we've got that cycle of her being more proactive and getting rewards for it. Okay. The next one here is to be eager to please and follow directions. This again ties in with being enthusiastic and you know, having that learning mentality. Okay, but yes, be pleasant, be eager to please, and follow directions. Don't, and if it's unclear, you simply just say, I don't fully understand that. Can you please explain it in a different way, Daddy, sir? Okay. Just be polite about it. If you don't understand, just be like, I don't get it, right? Or like, what are you doing? What are you asking me? Like, then that's a wrong way to go about asking for clarification. Okay. So, but just follow directions, and hopefully the directions you're getting are thorough. Okay, the next one is to be nurturing. I think we all know what that is. Be healthy. So take care of your mind, take care of your emotions, take care of your body. Again, this goes into having that vision of what kind of woman do you want to be? What kind of submissive do you want to be? And having this idea in your head and working towards it. Okay, health is part of that. The next one here is be willing to take correction. And the last one here is to be intelligent, which is the willingness to learn. Okay, so that's that's the list that I've got for ideal characteristics of a submissive. And again, I mentioned this before. It's not all going to happen all at once. It's not going to be, it's not going to be, right away. It's not going to happen right away. It's not going to be overnight. So, it's something to be worked towards. And if you got a good program, then you can make this happen. All right. So the next thing I wanted to just jump into, a little bit more fun stuff, is talking about discipline, punishments, and rewards. And so I have some ideas here for those that may want to incorporate these sort of things into their situation. And you don't have to be in a DS relationship in order to have a lot of these, but some of these are, they can be extreme. So I'm just looking that up here in my notes here. I have tons of documents in my Google Sheets here. Okay, so submissive reward ideas. Okay, so this breaks down into a number of categories. Okay, so part of this has to do with understanding what things make them feel good, how they feel most loved or connected to, and then you can tailor your incentives, your punishments or your rewards, to fit their preferences for maximum motivation and consistency. So, and again, if you don't know what punishments are, it's punishments that are enjoyed. Okay. So in some circles, a spanking would be something that is purely a punishment because the submissive does not like to be spanked. Okay. And then there's some subs that love to be spanked. And so that would be used as a punishment. And so so it's like punishing, but you're not really punishing, you're play punishing. Okay, that's a punishment. All right, so this breaks down into a number of categories. So the first one here is physical touch. So this can include petting and stroking, of their hair, kissing and stroking the submissive's face, holding, touching their neck, holding and touching the submissives in their arms or on their lap, cuddling, snuggling, kissing and hugging. So just basically having physical affection. Okay, physical affection as a reward. Remember, all of these things, yes, some of them are just regular, everyday relationship stuff, but they can be treated as rewards by knowing what they love most, what makes them feel connected the most. So it's and it's all individualized. So if they really, really love to snuggle, that's just something that makes them feel calm and safe and whole. This is something that you can use as a reward for certain behaviors. If she's learning a new thing, or she's, developing a new skill, or whatever it is, you can use the thing of physical intimacy as a reward system. Okay. Another one is quality time. So that's another category. Sending the submissive a random text or call, play a video or board game together, watching movies, reading books or stories to the submissive, taking them on a romantic picnic, going for a walk, setting aside time for leisure conversation. Because, sometimes, you're like, what? Leisure conversation? That's normal. Not all dynamics are romantic relationships. Sometimes the dom is just the dom and the sub is just the sub. However, the sub still wants to feel like a human, that they're this person with needs and desires, and not just this plaything who is just a yes sir, no sir, a sort of robot. Okay, so it's important that if you do have just a strict DS relationship and not romantic relationship mixed in there, that you incorporate some of these things. All right. Now, again, it's all individualized. So it takes some learning and maybe even just directly asking them, what is it that makes you feel connected? Affirming words. Okay. So, using pet names, or endearing terms for them, giving the submissive verbal praise and compliments, publicly praising them in front of friends or loved ones, using like, affirmation phrases, like saying like, good girl, that's my girl, I'm proud of you, you did a good job, you're a wonderful sub, you're so cute, attractive, or whatever. There's giving gifts. So if gifts is something that really kind of gives them the tingles, you can give them gifts. Small mindful gifts. Okay. So it could be like, maybe they really, really like coffee. They know a lot about coffee. So you went to one of those like boutique fucking, like hipster bullshit coffee places and got some like special Ethiopian beans and whatever. And they would really appreciate that because they love coffee. They're like really into coffee. So that's like a nice little reward. So it's like mindful gifts. So if gifts is a sort of thing that kind of gets them going, make sure that it's something you know about that's connected to them so that it's a mindful gift, not just a thing like, hey, I thought this would be great. Here, have it. Right. It's not as impactful. All right. So the gifts can also have like special references and meanings. All right. So this also has to do with like getting to know the deeper aspects of themselves and different parts of their lives. Okay. Giving them a new implement or toy, right? So if they're a total fucking hornball, you can get them, a fancy new vibrator, fancy new dildo or butt plug or a flogger that they find really cute and they want to, you always use like a black leather flogger and she's like, oh, I like that little pink cute one, right? You're like, okay, fine, I'll get you the pink cute flogger, so that when it reddens your ass, it looks the same. The colors are the same. All right, so there's that sort of stuff. Again, it's just like getting to know like what it is that gets them moving. You can give them accessories, outfits, lingerie, writing the submissive like a song or a poem or a story, allowing the submissive to choose a meal or a movie for the date night. So if you're like me, I'm always choosing that stuff. I'm choosing what the activities are constantly. I'm choosing what we're eating, I'm choosing where we're going, and it's like maybe you could make it as a treat for them to decide what we're going to eat. You'd allow them to decide where we're going to go, what movie we're going to see, what bar we're going to go to, what music venue we're going to listen to. So it goes on here, allowing them to choose that. And then there's like acts of service. So there's like drawing a bath and bathing submissive, giving the submissive a back rub or a foot massage, washing, drying, brushing their hair, braiding their hair, whatever, cooking the submissive's favorite dinner and feeding them, cooking them breakfast and having breakfast in bed, offering the submissive the night, day, or weekend off from their chores, allowing the submissive a morning off from their routine, allowing them to sleep in or whatever, right? Because, like with mine, there is a morning routine, and it's like every single morning you're gonna do this, and so sometimes I will allow that to not happen, and I make the fault of not recognizing that, like verbally saying, hey, today I don't give the reminder or the command to do the thing. Instead, it's best to make a recognition of that and say, hey, you know what? You've been doing great doing this stuff for a while, and I just want to give you a little treat, give you a little bit of a break. You don't have to do your morning routine, and instead you're going to chill here. I'm going to go make us a little bit of breakfast and some coffee, and we're going to have it together in the bed. So, you can use that. All right, so that's just a little bit about rewards. Rewards are always based around getting to know what inspires them, what gets them going, what makes them happy, what makes them feel loved, what makes them feel connected to you. And it makes it a lot more impactful. when you're aiming the rewards towards those motivators. Okay. And so let's go on to the next one, which is punishments. Okay. All right. So this is like something you can actually like present to your sub and like present it to them like in a list, because it might be, they might have an idea of like, say, how they would like to be punished. And when you're talking about, you have to get into discussions about punishment, because it's like, it's not always going to be the same for each person. And like, you might have a certain like idea of how you like to implement punishments. And it could be a physical punishment, a psychological punishment, an emotional punishment. And like what you want may not actually be something that does it for them. Okay. Because punishment is not just to inflict pain in one of these areas. That's not really what it's about. It's about bringing attention to an undesirable behavior. That's what it's about. And, you know, the action, whatever it is, whether it's like mental, emotional, or physical, it's to be impactful, such that it draws a lot of awareness to what was going on. Okay. So it's really getting to understand what is a good motivator for them. So again, like, you know, mention spanking. If spanking is a real punishment for them, like they just do not like to be spanked, and there's definitely women who don't like to be spanked, this can definitely be treated as a punishment, of course, with their consent. Like they have to be okay with it. All right. If it's like a huge red flag, like let's say in their childhood, their father used to beat the living shit out of their ass when they fucked up, and they're like super triggered by it, that's something they're not going to consent to, even if they don't like it. Okay. So just because they don't like it doesn't mean that that's a green light to use it as a punishment. You have to understand and investigate the things a little bit deeper than that. Okay. So just understand that when you're bringing punishment into your dynamic. Okay. So some examples. All right. So some examples here. They vary. All right. So one here is that she must perform endurance exercises of the dom's choosing. So exercise can be a punishment. Doing wall sits, doing planks, jumping jacks, squat thrusts, burpees, push-ups, sit-ups, whatever it is. You can have them perform certain exercises as a means of punishment. They need to, writing lines. That's like a classic. That's a classic punishment, is writing lines. Just like Bart Simpson in the beginning of the opening credits for the Simpsons show. And it's like, I must remember to whatever, or I must never, and then fill in the line, and then doing it, 10 lines, 20 lines, 30, whatever it is. Okay. Must compose a handwritten essay surrounding the topic of their misbehavior and rewrite by hand every time the dom finds an error. So if like it's missing a crossed T somewhere in there, oh, sorry, rewrite it. If it's missing a period, rewrite it. Oh, you forgot to put your name on the top, rewrite it. That's that sort of thing. Have the submissive do tedious and menial chores to the dom's satisfaction. Okay. Like I've heard of doms instructing their subs to clean the bathroom with not like rags and scrub brushes, but a toothbrush. And that would take forever because it's just such a small scrubbing area. Okay. Some must march in place in wet socks. She must hold a coin against the wall. This is one that I've done. Holding a coin against the wall with their nose for the duration of the dom's choosing. So you just go up against the wall and hold it, and they can't let up and let the coin fall down, because then you got to start the timer over again. They must hold stacks of coins against the wall with their fingertips for a duration of time, just like a stack of quarters, and just hold it against the wall. Usually like both hands and like leaning forward. All right. Let's see here. Some must kneel in the corner for a timeout for a duration of the dom's choosing. She must read through a lengthy set of terms and conditions and present the dom with notes. Hold on a second. Get to... Sorry about that. Okay, so back to the list. All right, she must, cut the lawn with scissors, with or without humiliating outfit on. That would be a good one. She must wear a gag, kneel in front of a canvas of freshly dripped paint and watch the paint dry. Remove all electronic devices. Remove all chargers to the sub's devices. They will be able to use said items, but they will be incredibly mindful about their use of time. Forbid the sub from using social media access. Forbid them from participating in their favorite hobby or activity, from watching their favorite show, movie, etc. If a sub is a little or a middle, remove their favorite toys or stuffies. Temporarily remove sub's favorite collar or lifestyle accessory like a toy or etc. Just note that just as a wedding ring would be wrong and abusive to remove in a punishment context, so would removing a collar, because that has the same meaning and symbolism of a wedding ring or that level of commitment. So be careful there. Ground the sub to the room for a duration of time. The sub's not allowed any candy, sweets, or soda, their favorite treats for a duration of time. Let's see here. The sub's not allowed to use hot water for a duration of time. It must bathe, shower, and otherwise wash with cold water only. All right. The sub is forbidden. They must eat only cold food for a duration of the dom's choosing. Some must only eat unseasoned bland food the duration of the dom's choosing. Some must follow an if routine, following a tight calorie restriction or limit portions to rations for a duration of time. Some must cook a delicious and complex meal, set a proper table, and watch the dom eat, after which they must thoroughly clean the kitchen and go to bed hungry. Some must endure a forced early bedtime or early morning routine. Limit sub sleeping hours for a few days. Monitor behavior and mood carefully. This is something that I really wouldn't do because, sleep deprivation can cause a lot of problems. But, everybody's different. I'm just putting it out there. The sub is not allowed to attend or frequent one of their favorite establishments, bar, restaurant, casino, etc. for a duration of time. And then there's always the classic scolding and lecturing. So that is just an example of punishments. And, again, depending on who it is, punishments will be punishments. And punishments will be punishments. It depends on what is really motivating them. Okay. And because, there's no one size fits all. So you got to really pay attention, get to know them, get to know what motivates certain behavior. And then once you can find out what motivates them, then that is something that can be used either for getting the behavior that's desired or for weeding out behavior that's undesirable. Okay. So I hope that was, helpful in sort of drawing, a general picture of what you can do in your situations. And, when it's a consensual dynamic, when it's a consensual thing where they're agreeing to certain types of rewards and punishments, everybody's on the same page. Okay, it sounds crazy. For people who've never really been involved in this sort of thing, it sounds crazy. Really? They're willfully allowing themselves to get punished. Yes, it's because they've got a vision. They're part of the vision. So the dom presents the vision, saying, hey, this is the thing that I want to create for us. This is what I see in my life. Do you want to get on board? They're like, okay, so they're getting on board. Now they're becoming part of the vision and how they see themselves in that vision. And from there, then you can start breaking down all the details and how to get from point A to point B. And there's a lot of steps between point A and point B, which require a lot of management. And so I know, like, it can sound like a lot of work, and sometimes it is. And sometimes you're going to forget stuff, and sometimes things are going to fall by the wayside. You got to like pick them back up again or whatever. And that's okay. But the alternative, not having any sort of plan, not having any sort of structure for either of you to be operating from, seems crazy to me now. Like, before I brought this sort of like power exchange into my relationships, I was just like everybody else, where I just winged it. Where I just kind of just go in and do my best, whatever that was. And my motivations were completely different because it wasn't based on a structure that had meaning. So everything's different when you have structure with meaning behind it, of a strong why. That's why the Constitution is so strong. That's why people rely on it, because it has meaning behind it. It's built. It was built with purpose. Is it perfect? No. Okay. Nothing is. Nothing that comes from human beings is going to be perfect. Okay. But we can have lofty ideals. We can work towards perfection and understand that we will never, ever get there. We're always going to be blind to something. We're always going to make mistakes. But that's not the point. The point is that we have a vision and we're trying to get to that. So it's like a lot of people in relationships, a lot of guys will have like the vision, but they won't have the steps to get there. They'll just kind of have like they'll see their destination up on the mountaintop and say, okay, that's how I'm going to get there. And they just kind of trudge along and with their eyes on the top of the mountain, which is fine, but they're not seeing the rocks and the stumps and the fallen trees and the mud puddles and the rivers in front of them. And they're just kind of adjusting to those things as they come along, as they come along these things. So they're always just kind of reacting and putting out fires and trying to build like on the fly, while still keeping that lofty goal off in the distance. And what's really more effective is keeping that vision in sight, but also glancing down at the ground and seeing what is the most effective path to get there, and plotting out a path, with design in mind. You're not just kind of trudge forward and like whatever's there is there. You can meander and figure out the most efficient way to get to where you want to go. And that requires having some sort of plan, having some sort of structure. That's why if you're in the woods and you want to go somewhere, you have a map, and you can look at the map and reflect on the environment and say, oh, okay, so it looks like that if we want to get over there, the best course of action brings me along this path over here. And that, I think, is the best way to go about relationships. Now, do you have to have seriously like punishments and rewards and rituals and rules and all these things? You don't have to get super granular about this. If it's something that you enjoy and the other person enjoys it as well, yes, you can. Absolutely. You can get super granular. But it's not absolutely necessary. It is necessary to have structure, though. It is necessary to have a structure that both are aware of and both respect. And then, if positive and negative reinforcements, punishments, and rewards come into play, they can kind of take on a more natural sort of thing. But it's important that when the structure is there, that you explain things clearly. So when, say, something happens and you're like, you know what, because of this, we are now not going to the movies this weekend. And you make it that clear. And say, you have 3 days. If you want to redeem yourself, these are the things, or this is the thing that you can do to redeem yourself. And then we're going to go see that movie that you've been wanting to see for the past 2 weeks. All right. So, it doesn't have to be extreme. Like, okay, you're going to be tied to a chair and, you're going to be held like one of those wand vibrators that are super, super strong. And we're going to hold this on your clit for, a half an hour while you're like beyond orgasm and you're into this realm of like hypersensitivity and pain. Like, you don't have to go that far. right? Because really just dominance is just a force. It's just it's an energy, right? It's a force, and it doesn't have to show itself in specific ways. So the lists that I provided was not any sort of like prescriptive thing. It was just to kind of like get your mind going in a certain direction, to get your ideas percolating, to think, oh, okay, how would I go about doing this sort of thing, you know? And if you're this type of person who enjoys this sort of power exchange, it can be quite enjoyable, right? Like I said, responsibilities don't always have to be a burden. These responsibilities can be enjoyable for a lot of people. So if you're that type of person who finds this sort of human interaction intriguing, and you enjoy figuring out the human mind and understanding, you know, impulses and anchors and motivations and, you know, underlying issues, and understanding the interplay of all of those things within a person, and knowing how you can walk through those things and alter these things and shift their energy this way or that, then this is for you. This is for you. Okay. And so, you know, that said, in the description of the video, you will see links to, you know, contacting me. You'll see links to my new website, is the dominanceacademy.com. And on there, if you scroll down, you're going to see two categories, is the monthly membership. And that breaks into a number of different tiers. And depending on which tier you choose, you get different perks. So the higher up you go, from freshman to sophomore to junior to senior, when you're in the junior and senior levels, then you get all these like special documents, you get special audios and things like that, as well as all the documented videos that are in the library, which I put new stuff in every month. And it's at least one video. So at the very least, it's one extra video. Often there's going to be more than one. So there's that. And then the other category, when you scroll all the way down, you'll see access to the calls, and you can do a la carte and just get one call, or you can purchase packs. And when you purchase packs, they become cheaper per call. Okay. So and that's, the calls are used for just general inquiry about relationships, about the self, about fostering your own dominance. And you're not necessarily wanting to, you know, reformat things within yourself. You need tweaking, you need just a little bit of guidance. That's what that's there for. Okay. The membership is for people who really need to grow. They really need to improve a lot of things that's going on in their lives. And the calls is just more for maintenance. Okay. So I encourage you to check that out. If anybody has any questions, you can find me on IG and message me there, or you can email me at thedominanceacademy@gmail.com. All right. I hope this was informative and helpful for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And for those of you catching on the replay, thank you for watching, and I appreciate you as well. Okay. Thanks, everybody, and we'll catch you on the flip side.